A stirring run for the men in blue and quite the shocking one for the team in green and gold. Time to bring our expert Chris Harris in to look at what's been a surprisingly one-sided series from Christchurch. Chris, you're supposedly a neutral in this one, but I see a wide smile on your face. Is that because Australia are getting absolutely walloped, or because your 4-1 prediction for the series looks to be coming good?
Oh, a little bit of both. I think from a cricket purist point of view, the good news for Australia is they are improving. And look, I did predict 4-1, and it's looking as though if it's not going to be 4-1, it's possibly going to be 5-0 to India because they're playing superbly. Look, I thought Australia played much better in this game in certain aspects, but I think Steve Smith touched on it. They lost very important moments in the game. You know, clutch situations where at 224 for one in the 38th over, really should have scored 340, 350. And so 293 was an improvement, but I think they would have been very disappointed at the break knowing that they should have scored over 300. And you've got to take your hats off to India because, as I said, Australia got off to the perfect start, and then India just kept in there. Yadav, although it was expensive, got a couple of great breakthroughs, and I thought all the other Indian bowlers, you know, went for under 6 on a good surface, bowled really, really well.
We've all known Australia over the years, Chris, as a side that gives no inch, no quarter. On paper, with that top 3, things don't look all that bad, but look down the order and there are no enforcers as such. One of them who could have played that role is Glenn Maxwell, but he's thrown his wicket to Yuzvendra Chahal every single game. And that inexperience at large, all in all, makes this perhaps the weakest Australian side to have travelled to India.
Yeah, it's certainly looking that way. It looks as though they're weaker than they have been in the past. And as I said, I think it's because of that middle to lower order. We know how talented Glenn Maxwell is. And the surprising thing is he's used to Indian conditions, obviously playing very experienced in the IPL. So he is used to those conditions and the wickets they're playing on. So, you know, it's just the fact that he's out of form. He is one player that can take the game away from you. As you said, this series has been very disappointing. Travis Head is another player that's coming up that hasn't really done much, got 39 in the last game. But, you know, you need those guys in important times, and this last game was of utmost importance because it was to decide the series, and they just didn't stand up. And as I said, losing Smith, you know, 41, losing your 2 informed players or your 2 players in at the time in those crucial last 10 overs was the absolute key in this game. Because we know their middle to lower order just hasn't stood up in this series.
Now, as poor as Australia have been, Chris, you have India checking so many boxes. And here are some numbers for you now. Since Jan 2016, India have won 15 bilateral series across formats out of 18. Add to that a semi-final finish at last year's World T20, a runners-up finish at this year's Champions Trophy, and you begin to see what MS Dhoni and Ravi Shastri meant when they said at different moments through this year that this could possibly be one of the better Indian units of all time.
I certainly think so. I mean, you look at across what they've done recently, there doesn't appear to be any weaknesses. As I said, the thing that's great about this Indian side is there's different players stepping up each match. And, you know, on top of those stats that you mentioned, I think this is equals their leading one-days consecutive wins as well. They're on 9, I think, and I think they did another 9 back in 2014. And it looks as though there's, you know, unless Australia approve out of sight, there's nothing going to stop that run. And so perhaps the next game could be their biggest winning streak in one-day cricket history. So, yeah, as I said, I mean, you also, you know, you look at the players that aren't playing, you know, as in the spin department, these 2 spinners have been magnificent. 2 young guys they've brought in, I guess, as a little bit of an experiment. And I think, wow, hasn't the experiment paid off? When you look at sort of Ashwin and Jadeja, who aren't playing, who have been quality spinners for a long time. So it's just the depth and it's the players that aren't playing that make this Indian side, for me, so great. And the fact that different players step up each day. And they've got a great seam attack as well. And they've got the ability to rest players and rotate seamers. And every time a seamer comes in, you know, Bumrah came in and bowled beautifully at the death. You know, there's strength in all areas. And let's not get into their batting because that's, you know, superb at the moment. And I know there's people on the sidelines that if they get the opportunity, you know there's a pretty good chance that they'll step up and do the job as well.